Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the window of her ship and looked out at Nexus Station. The huge space station spun slowly in the darkness between stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many arms. This was supposed to be neutral ground, a place where enemies could meet and talk instead of fight. Sarah touched the peace treaty papers in her jacket pocket. After 2 years of war with the Velkan Empire, they had suddenly asked for peace talks. The message had surprised everyone in the Terran Federation government. The Velkans were winning the war. Their ships were bigger and their weapons stronger. So why did they want peace now? Ambassador, we're ready to dock, said Marcus Rivera, her security chief. Marcus was a big man, with careful eyes, who never missed anything. He had fought the Velkans in 3 battles before becoming her bodyguard. Any word from the Velkan delegation? Sarah asked. They arrived 6 hours ago. Commander Thexvar brought 50 guards with him. That's a lot for peace talks. Sarah nodded. She had read everything about Commander Thexvar. He was a war-caste Velkan, which meant he was born to fight. His people looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had sharp teeth and claws, and they believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. The ship docked with a soft bump. Sarah straightened her blue diplomatic uniform and checked her translation device one more time. Dr. James Okafor, their alien expert, walked up to them carrying his research bag. Remember, Dr. Okafor said, Velkans show respect by lowering their heads slightly. Never show your back to them unless you trust them completely. And they think smiling shows weakness. Anything else? Marcus asked. Yes, they have an excellent sense of smell. They can tell if we're afraid or lying, so stay calm. The airlock opened and they stepped onto Nexus Station. The corridor was wide and clean, with signs in 20 different languages. Alien merchants and travelers moved past them without paying attention. This was normal here. A tall, thin alien with blue skin met them. I am Administrator Kelm. Welcome to Nexus Station. The Velkans are waiting in Conference Hall 7. They followed Kelm through the station. Sarah noticed Velkan guards standing at corners they passed. That was not normal. Nexus Station had its own security. Why were the Velkans posting their own guards? Marcus, she said quietly. Are you seeing this? Yes, ma'am. I count 12 guards so far. They're watching every route to the conference hall. Conference Hall 7 was in the Velkan section of the station. The walls here were darker, and the air was warmer. Everything smelled like leather and metal. More Velkan guards stood outside the doors. Commander Thexvar was waiting inside. He was 7 feet tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. His uniform had medals from many battles. When he saw Sarah, he lowered his head exactly 1 inch. Ambassador Chen, he said in perfect English, I am honored to meet you. Commander Thexvar, thank you for agreeing to these talks. War has cost both our peoples much blood. It is time to stop the killing. They sat at a long table. The Velkans brought out thick documents written on metal sheets. Sarah's translator worked hard to read them. These terms are very generous, Dr. Okafor whispered to her. They're offering to give back 3 star systems they captured. And they want to pay for damages to our colonies. Quote, Sarah frowned. This was too good. In her 20 years as a diplomat, she had learned that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. Commander, these terms are unexpected. Your people are winning this war. Why offer so much? Thexvar's yellow eyes did not blink. The Velkan Empire seeks honor, not conquest. We have proven our strength. Now we show our wisdom. Now we show our wisdom. Over the next 3 days, they worked through the details. The Velkans agreed to everything Sarah asked for. They wanted the signing ceremony to happen quickly. In their ceremonial chamber on the station, Marcus grew more worried each day. Something's wrong, he told Sarah on the 3rd night. I've been watching their guards. They're not acting like peacekeepers. They're acting like hunters. Leif, what do you mean? They keep checking exit routes and timing our movements. And look at this. Marcus showed her his scanner. They've been bringing in equipment that doesn't match their requests. High-powered scanners, restraint fields, medical supplies for prisoners. Sarah studied the readings. This could be normal security preparation, or it could be preparation for something else. I think we should delay the signing. Dr. Okafor joined their conversation. I've been studying their behavior too. Velkans are not good liars. But these ones keep looking away when they talk. Their scent patterns suggest stress and deception. Sarah felt ice in her stomach, but the peace treaty was too important to lose over suspicions. We'll go ahead with the signing. But we prepare for trouble. James, can your research help us if things go wrong? I have some ideas. Humans produce chemical signals that most aliens find disturbing. If I can concentrate and release them quickly, do it, Marcus said, and I'll have emergency plans ready. The next morning, Sarah dressed in her best uniform. The ceremony was in 1 hour. She looked at herself in the mirror and hoped she was making the right choice. Marcus knocked on her door. Time to go, Ambassador. They walked through the station toward the Velkan section. Sarah noticed that the normal crowds were gone. The corridors felt empty and quiet. More Velkan guards stood at every intersection. Too late to turn back now, Marcus said softly. We're diplomats, Sarah replied. We solve problems with words, not suspicion. But as they approached the ceremonial chamber, Sarah's heart was beating fast. Every instinct told her that danger was coming. She just hoped she was wrong. The doors to the chamber opened. Inside, dozens of Velkan officials stood in formal rows. Commander Thexvar waited at a golden table with the peace treaty. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped inside, ready to make history. The ceremonial chamber was beautiful in a cold way. Golden walls showed scenes of Velkan victories in battles across the galaxy. 40 Velkan officials stood in perfect rows like soldiers. Their eyes followed Sarah as she walked toward the signing table. Commander Thexvar stood behind the golden table. The peace treaty lay open on metal sheets that gleamed in the light. Sarah noticed that Velkan guards had quietly moved to block every exit. Her mouth felt dry. Ambassador Chen, Commander Thexvar said with a slight bow. Today we make history. No more war between our peoples. Indeed, Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Future generations will remember this day. Marcus stayed 2 steps behind her. As always. Dr. Okafor stood to her left, his research bag ready. Sarah could see him breathing carefully, preparing whatever he had planned. Sarah approached the table and picked up the signing pen. The metal felt heavy and cold. Commander Thexvar extended his clawed hand in the human custom of shaking hands. His yellow eyes watched her face. To peace, he said. To peace, Sarah replied, reaching out to take his hand. The moment their hands touched, everything went wrong. Now, Thexvar shouted in the Velkan language. Plasma fire erupted from every direction. Velkan guards had hidden weapons behind their ceremonial robes. Red energy bolts filled the air like deadly rain. Marcus saw the trap 1 second before it happened. He threw himself forward to shield Sarah from the shots aimed at her back. A plasma bolt meant for her caught him directly in the rear as he dove past her. Ugh! Marcus yelled, more from surprise than pain. The shot was not set to kill, but it burned through his uniform and sent him crashing to the floor. Sarah dropped flat as energy bolts sizzled over her head. The Velkans were not trying to kill them. They were trying to capture them alive. That was worse. Live human prisoners would be valuable for forcing the Federation to surrender. James, now, Sarah screamed over the noise of weapons fire. Dr. Okafor was ready. He smashed a small container from his bag and released a cloud of concentrated human pheromones into the air. The smell hit the Velkans like a physical blow. Their sensitive noses reacted instantly to the alien scent. Velkans started choking and backing away from the humans. Their eyes watered, and they could not aim properly. Dr. Okafor had studied this reaction in his lab, but seeing it work in real life was amazing. What is this poison? Commander Thexvar gasped, covering his nose with his claws. It's not poison, Sarah said, pulling out her emergency pistol. It's just how humans smell when we're really angry. Marcus groaned and rolled over, his rear still smoking from the plasma hit. Did they just shoot me in the ass during peace talks? They sure did, Sarah said, helping him up. Can you move? My dignity is hurt worse than my body, Marcus said through gritted teeth. He drew his weapon with his left hand, while holding his wounded rear with his right. But I can still fight. The pheromone cloud was spreading through the chamber. More Velkans fell back, unable to breathe properly. Sarah's team used the confusion to fight their way toward an emergency exit that Marcus had spotted during their earlier visits. This way, Marcus shouted, firing covering shots while walking in a very uncomfortable way. Commander Thexvar tried to order his guards to stop the humans, but half his soldiers were on their knees, sick from the smell. The ones still standing could barely see through their watering eyes. Dr. Okafor threw another container. This one made a bright flash that blinded the Velkans for several seconds. Emergency exit is 30 meters ahead, he called. They ran as best they could. Marcus moved like a man who had sat on a hot stove. But he kept up. Behind them, Velkans were slowly recovering and giving chase. Sarah reached the exit first and started the opening sequence. These emergency doors were controlled by Nexus Station security, not the Velkans. The heavy metal door began to slide open. Warning. Emergency exit opening in Velkan section, announced the station's computer voice. Security teams responding. About time, Marcus muttered, still holding his rear. Though they're a bit late for the party, Velkan guards reached the door just as Sarah's team slipped through. Plasma bolts hit the closing door, leaving burn marks on the metal. They were in a maintenance corridor now, away from the Velkan section. Sarah activated her emergency communicator. Mayday, Mayday, this is Ambassador Chen. The peace talks were a trap. The Velkans have betrayed the treaty and attacked our delegation. We need immediate extraction. The reply came from Captain Torres on their ship. Understood, Ambassador. Emergency protocols are active. Get to Docking Bay 12. We're preparing to leave. They moved through the station's service tunnels. Marcus left small blood spots on the floor behind them, but he never complained. Other humans might have been screaming from a plasma burn like that. How bad is it? Sarah asked him as they climbed through a maintenance shaft. Well, I'll be standing up for meals for a week, Marcus said. But I'll live. The question is, what happens next? Dr. Okafor helped pull Marcus up into the next level. The Velkans made a serious mistake. They don't understand human nature. End quote. What do you mean? Sarah asked. They think we're like them. They think we respond to strength with fear. But humans are different. When someone hurts us, especially when they lie and cheat to do it, we don't get scared. We get creative. They reached Docking Bay 12. Captain Torres had the ship ready to leave. Medical officers helped Marcus to the sick bay, while Sarah went to the bridge. Set course for Earth, best possible speed, Sarah ordered. What are your orders regarding the Velkans? Captain Torres asked. Sarah looked back toward Nexus Station through the ship's windows. She could see Velkan ships moving to block their escape, but they were too late. The human ship was already jumping to faster than light speed. I'm going to send a message that will be heard across the galaxy, Sarah said. Marcus Rivera was shot in the rear during peace talks by people who invited us to negotiate in good faith. That's not just an attack on him or on me. That's an attack on the entire idea that different peoples can solve their problems with words instead of weapons. And? Captain Torres asked. And humans have very long memories about that sort of thing. They just started something they cannot finish. As their ship raced toward Earth, Sarah began writing her report. The Velkans had wanted a quick victory through treachery. Instead, they had given humanity the perfect reason to show the galaxy what humans could really do when they put their minds to it. Behind them, Nexus Station grew smaller in the darkness. But the consequences of what happened there were just beginning. 3 days after the betrayal at Nexus Station, a new ship appeared in the darkness. The TNS Retribution was not a diplomatic vessel. It was a heavy cruiser with enough weapons to destroy a small planet. Its arrival sent shockwaves through every species that had ships near the station. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her ship and studied Nexus Station through the main screen. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had fought in 15 battles and never lost one. "Status report," she ordered. "Nexus Station is requesting our intentions," her communications officer said. "The Velkans have 12 ships in the area. They're asking us to leave immediately." "I bet they are," Captain Vasquez said with a cold smile. "Put me through to the station. All frequencies, all languages." On Nexus Station, every screen and speaker suddenly showed the same image. Marcus Rivera sat in the medical bay of the human ship, wearing a special cushion and looking very serious. Behind him stood Ambassador Chen and Captain Vasquez. "Citizens of the galaxy," Marcus began. "My name is Security Chief Marcus Rivera, of the Terran Federation. 3 days ago, I was shot in the rear during peace talks with the Velkan Empire." Across the station, aliens stopped what they were doing to listen. In the Velkan section, Commander Thexvar watched with growing horror. "Now, you might think getting shot in the rear is funny," Marcus continued. "I thought so too. For about 10 seconds. Then I realized what it really meant. The Velkans asked us to come in peace. They promised to negotiate in good faith. Instead, they planned to capture us and use us as hostages." The camera switched to show the security recording from the ceremonial chamber. Every species in the galaxy could see exactly what had happened. The Velkans setting their trap. The handshake that triggered the attack. Marcus diving to protect his ambassador, and taking the shot meant for her. "This is not just about me," Marcus said as the video played. "This is about what happens when someone breaks the rules that allow different species to talk instead of fight. The Velkans didn't just shoot me. They shot the idea that enemies can become friends." The broadcast switched to Ambassador Chen. "The Terran Federation takes this betrayal very seriously. But we are not monsters like those who attack diplomats under a flag of peace. We will respond, but we will respond in our own way." The transmission ended. Across Nexus Station, different species began talking to each other about what they had just seen. Many of them had trade agreements with the Velkans. Some were thinking about changing that. On the Retribution, Captain Vasquez activated her ship's massive communication array. Within minutes, the video was being broadcast throughout Velkan space and beyond. Every planet, every ship, every trading post would see what had happened. "Captain," her intelligence officer reported, "we're getting responses from across the galaxy. The Altarian Trade Union is asking questions about their contracts with the Velkans. The Centauri Republic is demanding an explanation. Even some Velkan colony worlds are asking their government what really happened." "Good," Captain Vasquez said. "Marcus, how are you feeling?" Marcus carefully stood up from his medical chair, still wearing his special cushion. "Ready to make some new friends, Captain. And maybe teach some old enemies about human patience." Over the next few hours, human ships began arriving near Nexus Station. Not warships, but freighters and passenger vessels. They parked themselves around the station and started doing something no one expected. They began helping. Human engineers offered to repair damaged alien ships for free. Human doctors provided medical care to any species that needed it. Human merchants started giving away supplies to traders who were having money problems. "What are they doing?" Commander Thexvar asked his intelligence officer. "I am not sure, sir. They are acting like friends." At the same time, strange things began happening in Velkan space. Trading ships found their cargo holds mysteriously empty when they reached their destinations. Communication networks experienced technical problems that made it hard to send messages. Several Velkan officials discovered that their secret bank accounts had been closed and the money donated to charity. Nothing could be traced back to the humans. But everyone knew who was responsible. "This is psychological warfare, Doctor," Okafor explained to a gathering of alien reporters on Nexus Station. "Humans are very good at this kind of fighting. We make our enemies look foolish instead of dangerous," a Centauri reporter asked. "But why not simply attack them? Your ships are powerful enough. Because that would make us like them," Dr. Okafor replied. "Humans prefer to win wars without fighting them. We change how people think, instead of just destroying things." The Velkans tried to respond with force. They sent ships to attack human freighters near Nexus Station. But the human vessels had escorts now. Not just human escorts, but ships from 6 different species that had decided they did not like what the Velkans had done to the peace talks. "This is Admiral Crix of the Altarian Defense Force," came a transmission when Velkan ships approached a human medical ship. "You will not attack vessels providing humanitarian aid. If you fire on these ships, you fire on us as well." The Velkan ships retreated without fighting. Back on the Retribution, Captain Vasquez received a priority message from Earth. Fleet Admiral Santos appeared on her main screen. "Elena, the Federation Council has reviewed your reports. They're authorizing Operation Sore Spot. You have full resources for a comprehensive response." "Understood, Admiral. What are my rules of engagement?" "Show them what happens when you make humans angry. But do it smart, not just hard. The whole galaxy is watching." Captain Vasquez smiled. "Marcus, you ready to become famous?" Marcus adjusted his cushion and grinned. "Captain, I think I already am famous. The question is, what kind of famous do we want to be?" "The kind that people remember for 1,000 years, Captain Vasquez replied. Over the next week, the story of Marcus Rivera and the betrayal at Nexus Station spread to every corner of known space. Children on dozen worlds heard the tale of the human who got shot during peace talks and started a revolution without firing a shot in anger. The Velkans found themselves isolated. Former allies began questioning their trustworthiness. Trade partners started asking for payment in advance. Even their own colony worlds began demanding explanations from their government. "Sir," Commander Thexvar's aide reported, 17 Velkan worlds are asking why we attacked diplomats. 3 trade guilds have cancelled their contracts with us, and the Hegemony Council wants to meet with you immediately." Thexvar stared at the reports piling up on his desk. In trying to capture 3 humans, he had somehow lost half his empire's credibility. "What have we done?" he whispered. But the humans were just getting started. 2 weeks after the shooting, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the intelligence briefing room aboard the Retribution. The walls were covered with star maps, showing Velkan territory and trade routes. Red marks indicated where human operations had disrupted Velkan activities. There were a lot of red marks. "The economic pressure is working," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, the intelligence officer. "Velkan trade income has dropped 40%. 3 of their colony worlds are talking about independence." Marcus Rivera sat across from Sarah, still using his special cushion but looking much better. His wound had healed, but he kept the cushion as a reminder. "What about military response? They have to be planning something." "That's the strange part," Park continued. "Our sources inside Velkan space say their military is confused. Commander Thexvar has been receiving orders that contradict each other. Some tell him to attack human ships. Others tell him to avoid any contact with humans." Captain Vasquez entered the room carrying a datapad. She looked worried, which was unusual for her. "We just intercepted something interesting." "Show them the recording." Park. The main screen showed a communication between Commander Thexvar and someone whose face was hidden in shadow. The voice was translated into English by the computer. "You have failed, Warcaste," the hidden figure said. "The humans were supposed to be easy prey. Instead, you have made them heroes. The plan was flawed from the beginning," Thexvar replied angrily. "Humans do not respond to aggression like other species. They become more dangerous when attacked. That is why they must be contained before they spread further into our galaxy. The test has failed. Now we move to the next phase." "What test?" Thexvar demanded. "The test to see if humans could be controlled through fear. Since they cannot, they must be eliminated. The hegemony has made this decision." The recording ended. The room was quiet for several seconds. "The hegemony?" Sarah asked. "I've heard that name in old diplomatic files." Dr. Okafor, who had joined them for the briefing, nodded grimly. "The hegemony is a secret alliance of the oldest space-traveling species. They've controlled galactic politics for thousands of years by making sure no new species gets too powerful. And now they see humans as a threat," Captain Vasquez said. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. So the Velkans were just following orders? This whole thing was planned by someone else? It looks that way, Park confirmed. Our intelligence suggests the hegemony wanted to test human resolve. If we had surrendered after the attack, they would have used the Velkans to keep us contained in our own space. Since we fought back, they're moving to Plan B. Which is? Sarah asked. Eliminate humanity as a threat to their control. Captain Vasquez studied the star maps on the wall. How many species are in this hegemony? Unknown, Dr. Okafor replied. They work in secret, but our best estimates suggest at least 12 major civilizations, including some we consider friends. So we can't trust anyone, Marcus said. Not entirely, Sarah agreed. But we can't fight the entire galaxy either. Captain Vasquez turned to face the group. Maybe we don't have to fight them. Maybe we can do something else. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Marcus, you've become famous across the galaxy as the human who got shot in the rear and started a revolution. What if we use that fame to expose the real enemy? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Explain. The hegemony controls things by staying hidden. Secret meetings, secret orders, secret manipulations. What happens if we drag them into the light? Dr. Okafor leaned forward with interest. You want to expose the entire conspiracy? I want to do more than that, Captain Vasquez said. I want to give every species in the galaxy a choice. Stay under hegemony control, or join something new. Park brought up new data on the screen. Captain, we're receiving reports that several species are asking to meet with human representatives. The Altarians, the Centauri Republic, even some Velkan colony worlds. Because they saw what happened to Marcus, Sarah realized. They saw that humans don't just fight back against betrayal. We also help those who help us. Exactly. Captain Vasquez said. We've shown the galaxy two things. First, that attacking humans has consequences. Second, that working with humans has benefits. Marcus stood up carefully, adjusting his cushion. So, what's the plan? Captain Vasquez activated the wall display, showing ship movements across multiple star systems. We're going to do something that's never been done before. We're going to call a galactic convention. Every species, every government, every trade guild. We invite them all to one place. That's impossible, Dr. Okafor said. The logistics alone. Not impossible, just very difficult. But humans are good at difficult things. Sarah studied the plan forming on the screen. Where would we hold such a meeting? Nexus Station, Captain Vasquez said with a smile. Right where this all started. The Velkans control that section of the station, Park pointed out. Not anymore, Captain Vasquez replied. I received word an hour ago. The station administration has revoked Velkan territorial rights due to their attack on diplomatic personnel. The space is now available for rent. End quote. Marcus laughed, then winced as the movement bothered his healing wound. You want to hold a galactic peace conference in the same room where I got shot in the rear? I can't think of a better place, Captain Vasquez said. It's symbolic. Over the next few days, invitations went out across the galaxy. The message was simple. Come to Nexus Station. Learn the truth about who really controls your worlds. Decide your own future. The hegemony tried to stop their member species from attending, but they had a problem. For thousands of years, they had ruled from the shadows. Now that the humans were shining light on their activities, many species wanted to know what had been hidden from them. Sir, Commander Thexvar's aide reported. 43 different governments have announced they will attend the human conference. Quote, Thexvar stared at the list. Many were species he had thought were under hegemony control. What are our orders from the hegemony? They want us to attack the conference and blame human aggression for starting a war. Thexvar was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke. Prepare my personal ship, but not for attack. Sir, I am going to Nexus Station. It is time to hear what the humans have to say. On the Retribution, final preparations were underway. The ship would escort the diplomatic convoy to Nexus Station. You realize, Sarah said to Marcus, that you're probably going to be the most famous human in galactic history? Marcus adjusted his cushion one more time. All because someone shot me in the rear during what was supposed to be a peace meeting. Sometimes the most important moments in history start with the smallest incidents, Dr. Okafor observed. Getting shot in the rear is not a small incident when it happens to you, Marcus replied. But I'm beginning to think it might be worth it. Why? Sarah asked. Marcus looked out at the stars streaming past their ship. Because maybe, just maybe, we're about to make sure that no one else gets shot during peace talks ever again. 6 months later, Nexus Station had never been so crowded. Ships from every corner of the galaxy filled its docking bays. The conference hall where Marcus Rivera had been shot was now the center of the most important meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from over 200 different species. In the front row sat Marcus Rivera, still using his famous cushion, now wearing the uniform of the newly created Galactic Mediation Council. 6 months ago, Sarah began, Security Chief Rivera was shot in the rear during peace talks. Today, we gather to make sure that such betrayals never happen again. The audience was quiet. Everyone knew the story by now. Marcus Rivera had become a symbol across the galaxy. The human who turned a moment of betrayal into a movement for justice. But first, Sarah continued, we must understand what really happened in this room. The wall screens lit up with evidence that human intelligence had gathered over months of investigation. Communications between hegemony leaders, financial records showing payments to the Velkans, secret meetings where the attack on the human delegation had been planned. The Velkans were not acting alone, Sarah explained. They were following orders from a secret alliance called the Hegemony. For thousands of years, this group has controlled galactic politics from the shadows. A representative from the Centauri Republic stood up. You are accusing some of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy of conspiracy. I am presenting facts, Sarah replied calmly. The evidence speaks for itself. More documents appeared on the screens. Records of how the hegemony had started wars between younger species to keep them weak. How they had sabotaged trade deals to maintain control over resources. How they had assassinated leaders who became too independent. Commander Thexvar rose from his seat in the Velkan section. The entire hall turned to look at him. Many species had not expected him to attend the conference. Ambassador Chen speaks the truth, Thexvar said in his deep voice. The hegemony used my people as tools. They promised us victory over humanity, then abandoned us when their plan failed. Why should we believe you? Called out a delegate from the Andorian systems. Thexvar activated his personal datapad. Because I have recordings of every conversation between Velkan leadership and our hegemony contacts. I am prepared to share them with this assembly. The hall erupted in discussion. Species that had been enemies for generations realized they had been manipulated into fighting each other. Trade disputes that had seemed natural were revealed to be artificially created. Sarah called for order. The question before us is simple. Do we continue to live under secret control, or do we create something new? What are you proposing? Asked the representative from the Altarian Trade Union. Marcus Rivera stood up carefully, his cushion making a soft sound against his chair. The hall became quiet. Everyone wanted to hear from the famous human who had started this revolution with his wounded rear end. We propose the Galactic Mediation Council, Marcus said. An organization where disputes are settled openly, with representatives from all species, where peace talks are protected by laws that every civilization agrees to follow. And who would lead this council? Asked a delegate from the Rigel Confederacy. Everyone, Marcus replied. Leadership would rotate between species. Decisions would be made by vote. No single group would have permanent control. Why should we trust humans to organize such a thing? Demanded a voice from the back of the hall. Dr. Okafor stepped forward to answer. Because humans have something most species lack, a very long memory for injustice, and a talent for creative solutions. We do not forget when someone betrays our trust. But we also do not forget when someone helps us. To demonstrate his point, Dr. Okafor activated another display. It showed everything humanity had done since the attack on Marcus. The aid they had provided to struggling colonies, the trade agreements they had honored even when it cost them money, the protection they had given to species threatened by hegemony manipulation. Humans fight differently than other species, Dr. Okafor explained. We do not seek to conquer. We seek to build alliances with people who share our values. Over the next 3 days, the delegates worked through the details of a new galactic government. The hegemony species tried to maintain their secret control, but too much had been exposed. One by one, their member civilizations abandoned them. The breakthrough came when Admiral Crix of the Altarian Defense Force stood to address the assembly. My people have been members of the hegemony for 800 years, she announced. Today, we resign from that organization and request membership in the new Galactic Mediation Council. Within hours, dozens of other species followed. The 1,000-year-old hegemony began to collapse as its members chose transparency over secrecy. On the final day of the conference, Sarah Chen stood once again at the podium. Before her lay the Charter of the Galactic Mediation Council, signed by representatives of 127 different species. This document establishes new rules for how civilizations interact, Sarah said. The first rule, proposed by Security Chief Rivera, is known as the Rivera Protocol. Marcus stood and read from the charter. Any attack on diplomatic personnel during peace negotiations is considered an act of war against all member species of the Council. Such attacks will be met with unified response. The delegates applauded. Many of them had experienced betrayals similar to what had happened to the humans. Now they had protection against such treachery. The second rule, Sarah continued, establishes the right of any species to call for mediation of disputes. No longer will civilizations be forced to solve their problems through war. More applause. Several species had already requested mediation for conflicts that had lasted for decades. Finally, Sarah concluded, this charter establishes humanity's role as permanent mediators of the Council. We will serve not as rulers, but as facilitators of peace. Commander Thexvar approached the podium. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Velkan people, I formally apologize for the attack on your delegation. We were tools of the hegemony, but that does not excuse our actions. He turned to face Marcus Rivera. Security Chief Rivera, I am prepared to submit to whatever justice you and your people demand. Marcus stood up, his cushion making its familiar soft sound. He walked slowly to where Thexvar waited. Commander, Marcus said, you shot me in the rear during peace talks. That was wrong, and it hurt. Thexvar lowered his head. But because you shot me, we discovered the hegemony's conspiracy. Because of that discovery, we have created something that will protect peace negotiations for generations to come. Marcus extended his hand toward Thexvar. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best outcomes. Will you help us build this new galaxy? Thexvar stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then he reached out and shook it firmly. I will, he said. The assembly erupted in cheers. The sound echoed through Nexus Station and was broadcast across the galaxy. The age of secret manipulation was ending. The age of open cooperation was beginning. Later that evening, Sarah found Marcus on the observation deck, still carrying his cushion and looking out at the ships departing from Nexus Station. So, she said, how does it feel to be the most famous rear end in galactic history? Shiwash, Marcus laughed. Embarrassing, but worth it. Though I hope no one else has to get shot to start the next revolution. Saying that, what's next for you? The Mediation Council needs someone to train security for diplomatic missions. Someone who understands what happens when things go wrong. Sarah nodded. And your cushion? Marcus patted the soft padding. This is going in the Council's museum, right next to the peace treaty from this conference. Future diplomats need to remember that sometimes the smallest incidents can change the entire galaxy. Even getting shot in the rear, especially getting shot in the rear. Marcus replied with a grin. Because it taught us that humans don't just get angry when someone betrays our trust. We get creative. And creative humans are the most dangerous thing in the universe for people who want to control others through fear. As they watched ships from 100 different worlds disappear into jump space, carrying news of the new galactic order to every corner of known space. Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that terrible day 6 months ago. The hegemony was broken. The Velkans were allies instead of enemies, and humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors of the idea that different peoples could solve their problems with words instead of weapons. All because someone had been foolish enough to shoot a human in the rear during peace talks. Sometimes, Sarah thought, the universe had a strange sense of humor.